Good morning, everyone. Let's give a big hand to JDRF for the impactful work they're doing. And if you had any idea or concerns on Todd's toughness and so on, you obviously know it comes from Mom, right? As it go through, so let's give her a hand, too. Well, I hope the rebels or the new mafia is doing well, because if you're here, obviously you're thinking differently and you have different ambitions. And it's good, I guess I would be old mafia, I guess, way Todd defines it, to go through. But the one thing, if you know me, worked with me in the past, I like to break the molds. I like to change things. And when we talked about this in this presentation, we thought it'd be important to share maybe an example of what if you don't change? What if you don't evolve quickly enough? And what can you learn? Sometimes to figure out what you want to do, you have to start what you don't want to do, or what position you don't want to be in. And let me start with what happened to Armstrong could have been avoided. Could have been avoided if different decisions were made earlier. And we'll talk through that, because there's nothing that could have been not addressed earlier. And I think there's tremendous opportunities to go through that. But thrilled to be here, thrilled to be with you, good to reconnect with friends and share this story with you. So just a little bit about me. I've been in the industry close to 30 years. Was the CEO for Armstrong for the last 3. As you see, that's a picture when I took the job. I had a lot more hair, and if it had been color, you would see there would be a lot less gray. So definitely, it was quite an ordeal. I'm the son of a general contractor. My dad was a contractor in Canada, working on different remodel projects in the industry for about 15 years. I've had the opportunity to travel the world. I've worked with retailers, contractors, distributors, other manufacturers, and really seen a lot of different models and different versions of what to do and what not to do over time. And if you look at my career, usually I like challenges. I like to take things on that are difficult. So things that, if you look at my past experiences, both at Volatile in Mohawk, I got there right at the merger of American Only and Volatile, which was a very challenging period. And most of my assignments were the ones that people didn't want. More challenging, the better. That's why I enjoy it. That's why I think I can make a difference. And if you look at it, some people say the more screwed up situations are the most challenging. And a lot of people question my sanity at a different point in time. And I would say a lot of my good friends wonder, why am I going to Armstrong and doing this? Because I think I could make a difference. It's easy to go the easy route. And if you look at Todd's presentation, I probably enjoy war times a lot better than peacetime, because that's where you can change things. There's opportunity to do things differently. In a management style, I usually I approach an aggressive business strategy. I like to be decisive on what we are going to do and what we're not going to do. And also empower the team to execute. Because really it's all about the team and make sure everybody's connected to do what we need to do. A little bit of history. Really, Armstrong, I was familiar with Armstrong as a kid. It was actually my dad's favorite brand to install in remodels, in bathrooms and kitchens. It was his go-to. If you look also, my first project when I moved to the U.S. was actually the integration of American Olean into Volatile. Kind of ironic to go through. Had to come to Pennsylvania, just hadn't moved to the U.S. And one of the first projects they gave me was to work on the integration of that divestiture to Volatile. And one of my best mentors is a Armstrong alumni, Frank Peters, huge Penn State fan. Is there any Penn State fans in the room to go through? But it's definitely someone that he was the head of product development at Evans & Black, if you remember that name, a company that got disrupted that's now part of Shaw, but really had a great training and understanding in the industry. And if you look at it, Armstrong in the 90s was the standard for excellence. It was known as the IBM of flooring. It was really what other companies tried to model. And if anybody went through the Armstrong training program, and I think there's a few in this room, it was really recognized as the best training program in the industry. And if you look at this industry, a lot of executives came through that training program and had great careers. So really, it was a great place to start and grow from. And, then I joined Armstrong myself, was an opportunity to be part of it and make a difference. So this is the industry in 1992. Probably what the picture that Todd shared, that's probably what the industry looked like when he was a young kid. And this came from Floor Focus. It just can't put this out maybe a few months ago on a tweet, but it's changed. It's changed dramatically across the group. If you look at the changes, look at these companies that are not around anymore. Part of it. They're part of something else. Some of them are not around at all. They're not. It's been tremendous, tremendous change. 14 of those companies before today, and you include Armstrong, 75% of those companies are not there anymore. And some were extremely successful, very large, and were leading the business. And really, if you look at now, in 2022, there's only 3 that were in the top 10 that are in, 3 in the top 10 in 92, they're in the top 22. 2 were below, have moved up, and 5 are brand new. 5 are just brand new companies that started that were not around. And there's this young guy named Bob Shaw that left, came back, and started this little company in 2009. It's the 3rd largest company in the industry. So if anybody's wondering, hey, I'm too old, it's too late, and so on, there's no time like the present. And I think you being aggressive and taking a different approach is possible. And you look at these 5 other companies, or 4 other companies in the top 10, they weren't around. So why not you? You can build up the business any which way you want. And you got same stories for people who've been around a while in retail. Some of you will remember Color Tile, or for the people who are old enough, Macy's was a major flooring retailer. And I know for your 30-year-olds in the room, that's hard to believe, but Macy's was a major flooring retailer, like many other large retailers. You think on distribution, L.D. Brinkman was a huge entity, had a lot of clout across the group. A name like Hoboken may be another one that people will remember. Very successful companies built up, going through, but people disrupted. People thought about the problem differently, and other people took their spot. So this is the movement, a period of change. And, this came out in Floor Covering News. You look at some of the changes that could happen, and you look at, I mentioned some of the names that were out there, but these were some of the leaders at the time in each category that are part of something else. Armstrong, that's now part of AHF. Beaulieu of America, that's now part of Engineered Floors. Burlington Lees, that's part of Mohawk, was the top carpet tile company at the time. Beaulieu was a $1 billion private company. Bruce Hardwood, now part of AHF, very large, dominated the hardwood category, and now has come back under a different structure. And then Pergo, probably the most advertised brand in the country, and is now part of Mohawk. All of them change ownership and structures because of certain decisions at a point in time there. And you have all the same thing in every aspect of the industry. So those decisions you make today, tomorrow, will decide which part of that ledger you're on. So to give you a little bit on Armstrong, there was actually a lot of good to start with. A lot of things to leverage, but there are also some major challenges. It was focused on resilient, fastest growing part of the business. Some people think possibly resilient will be bigger than carpet at the end of this year in the industry. So definitely in the right place, had the best distributors in the industry to work with. Unfortunately, the company didn't grow for 5 years. You got this whole tailwind to help you, and the company didn't grow for 5 years. Obviously, certain decisions were not being made that need to be made. Part of it was not in the right channels to grow. Armstrong did not have any significant business with over half the major retailers in the country. It was a bigger issue. Some contractors wanted to buy differently, And then one of the biggest trends in the industry, in hospitality, if you go to hospitality now, you got LVT everywhere. There's no strategy to participate in any of those markets in any significant way. Innovation. They had talented people. More PhDs, masters in chemistry, extremely talented people. And they had a lot of great innovations that actually you see came out in the last 3 years on the Armstrong side, and actually came out in the last 3 years at AHF. Most of those innovations existed years back, but they didn't go to market for whatever reason or were not presented as relevantly as they need to be. You look at, product was complex, and I know all of you deal with a lot of products, a lot of challenges, but less is more. The first thing we did, we cut half the product line together and discontinued 75% of the SKUs because it was important to be on point and relevant. More doesn't equal more. Everything on your showroom floor should have a purpose or an intent. It has to be something that helps you drive business. And Armstrong had way too much, and otherwise it drives cost and complexity across your business. Brand, great brand. You do any survey, you talk to some of the press and so on, Armstrong's the most recognized brand in flooring for all the investments that were made through the years. But unfortunately, there was very little investment the last 10 years. It wasn't as refreshed, it wasn't on point style-wise, but it was known. Mostly it was people 40 and above that knew the brand that was established. So it definitely needed a revamp. And the other piece, I was listening to a YouTube video of Jason, systems and processes. I mean, for a company that was so successful, many of the systems and infrastructures were over 20 years old. You can't be successful. Technology is cheaper now than ever. You can do a lot. Make sure it works for you. Because in the case of Armstrong, it made all the changes harder. And it really made things more complex. And when you have things also been around for 20 years, some people had left. We didn't have the knowledge to change it and to execute the way we should. Major hindrance to go through. And I think if you want to scale your business and grow your business, I know some people will be speaking to this later, you have to get your systems and processes right. Because that's how you take it from a job to a business. And I think for all of you, if you want to scale, if you want to be that $200 million business, you want to be in the top 50 retailers in the country, get your systems right and make technology work for you. It's easier now than ever. There's no excuses to not do it. It will help you through good and bad times all the way through. So, we developed a clear strategy, and I'm looking forward to what AHF will do to take it to the next level. But I think we made sure it was simple and straightforward. So first, we used 3 words: grow, simplify, and strengthen. Everyone at AFI knew those words, and it also guided everyday decisions, right? So the company hadn't grown 5 years, and we're in the best category possible. We had to grow again. We had to participate in different areas that we didn't participate in the past. In residential retail, in builder, we had some key accounts, but we didn't have enough of those accounts to win and grow with. In hospitality, great idea. LVT's working there, but we really didn't have the people with the relationships. Relationships are key. In whatever segment you get in, some of you all here are mostly focused on retail, but if you want to get in the builder, if you want to do some commercial work, it's important to have people that have relationships. There's a whole cycle to that market and that business, so it's important that you add the right folks. The other piece is price points and visuals. We had a major opportunity there. Many of our products were dated visually. We are in the fashion business, if anybody is not thinking about it. Flooring is in the fashion business. It's critical that you look the part, have the products that understand it, because it's a big decision. And, the big thing is a lot of people don't know, we had too little of the right products, meaning 2/3 of our product line was sheet and VCT. So let that resonate. 2/3 of our product line was sheet and VCT. Not exactly growing categories for you all, right? Doesn't excite you much, right? So there's a place for it, but the business was not going to get where it needed. A third was LVT. So one of the things we did, we reversed that whole equation. We had to be relevant. It wouldn't work otherwise. So I would challenge you, make sure you have the showroom that, not too much, just enough, but make sure you go with the trends. Trends are critical. Take advantage of them. Make sure that you benefit from those tailwinds to drive your business and lead. It's critical. Sometimes it's easy to get comfortable. You've had a good display, good brand, whatever. But challenge this. Once a year, go through your whole showroom. Hey, do I need this? Does this fit? Do I need something else? Simplify. We talk about the number of products. More is not more. I think that's one of the things I learned through my whole career. Everywhere we decluttered, simplify, streamline, made things easier, made the company more effective, make the company more successful, and you can service your customers better. You can also teach your RSAs a lot better by having less of product and less complexity across the business. The other thing we did, there's a lot of things that are the same in this industry. You heard Todd talk about wearers, mills, and so on. Everybody's got their flavor, right? I'm reforming from that. But when you have a sameness, ask yourself, do you need it? I think the one thing, it's the same thing on the manufacturer side. We had a lot of similar things, but didn't add up. And we're just carving out the dollars across those similar things to make things more complex. And your team will focus on what you have, and will focus on what you can drive, and make sure that you can be successful with, and you can fulfill your commitments with them a lot better. We simplified our manufacturing and processes, right? We had too many plants, too much complexity, too many steps. We integrated them across the step. And you have a version of that within your retail business. The one thing we also did is we streamline and standardize. So for you that have multiple locations, we had a different way of doing things in every plant. We had 9 plants. They all had a different reporting system, different structure, different processes. I come from a world that had over 40 plants, and everybody does it the same way. And so if you have a challenge and you have a challenge to say, hey, this location's got to do something different or whatever, there's no reason. You need standardization processes you can rely on. You need standardization processes you could teach, and also how you can communicate so you have the same language across the business. You will not be successful. For ones that want to grow and develop, this is one of the biggest keys to scaling, is really making sure that you have a processes that works for your whole business. It has to be your company's processes, or else you will not get there. And if you do get there, if you do standardize, you'll be surprised how much faster you can go and how much you sleep better at night, because you'll execute in a standard, common way. And that's true in every type of business. And I think the one thing also that was important, and that was a challenge at Armstrong, a lot of decisions had to be taken up the food chain. And I was surprised my first few weeks had, Michelle, what should we do here? What should we do about this? And one of the questions said, why are you asking me? You're on the front line. You know this a lot better. I've been on the job 2 weeks. You've been working this plant for 20 years. You know this. And I think they weren't empowered. And I think just having the common understanding that, hey, you trust your people, you agreed on a framework, how to make decisions and how to execute, but empowering is critical to scaling and growing. And they'll have great suggestions too. I think the one thing when we started doing that, we got a lot of good input from folks to get to the next level, which is critical. So very much empower them. Let them execute. Let them drive. You'll be surprised how far and how fast you can go with that approach. One thing we did, the brand was dated, and there was a lot of debate, a lot of emotion. Some people were concerned they would have to do their Circle A Armstrong tattoos to go through, because there is some in this industry that has an Armstrong tattoo. I've seen it live to go through, so I didn't bring that picture, but I've seen it. it was important to be relevant and catch up to the trends and where it needed to be. So we made the change, and that was a big change, but also it got the message across to everybody. It was a different Armstrong. It was a more progressive Armstrong. And some of these symbols are important to make sure you execute and drive and really communicate what you're about. We talked about innovation. It was important to keep innovating and progressing. Some technology, we launched in the first few months in 2020, we launched the first non-PVC sheet product. It was actually the first true solution that was requested from commercial. Another product was Empower, needing no acclimation. Very easy. Those innovations had existed within the company for years, but didn't get to market. So we improved quality standards in operations is key. Look at your operations day in and day out, and the friction points is critical because your customers feel them. The things that are not smooth within your business, you can work like crazy and put all the hours you want, but if your processes don't enable that and make you reliable, you're spending a lot of energy and resources that you could spend somewhere else, but also you do not give the right outcomes to your customers. Because let's face it, you are providing outcomes and you're providing Mrs. Smith's dream, that new kitchen, that new floors, that new bedrooms. It's critical to have that execution piece to provide a great customer experience. And I think we worked through our communication too. It was very important to communicate, and also to have a two-way street. Everybody at the company had my cell phone. Everybody was shocked. I gave up my cell phone. I gave it around the world. We had 1,800 employees. And actually, employees called me on Saturday. I did get a call at 1 a.m. one night to go through. But they got it. It's accessible. I cared as much as they did, and it was important to get that two-way communication. Nuggets I got from that, and some were humbling. Sometimes we had a great intention but bad execution. You need that feedback. So make yourself available to everybody. It's critical. So it was a new, simple strategy. We put it forward. Unfortunately, it was too late. Not enough, too late. Going through, as you know, we went through one of the most difficult times in the industry for a manufacturer. And keep in mind what Armstrong was at the time. Armstrong is known residentially, but it was mostly a healthcare, mass retail, meaning flooring that goes into mass retail, and education. That was close to 60% of the business in North America. And what do you think happened in 2020? Those projects went away. Hospitals were worried about taking care of their patients, as they should, right? They were worried about, schools were trying to figure out how to educate a bunch of kids on Zoom. And retailers that were killing it, they didn't want to remodel their stores. Tough times for a business that was misaligned. And I think the one thing, having diversity of channel and markets is critical. Something to think about as you develop your business and grow your business. There's different channels to each part of the business and market. Make sure you have some diversity. We're way overweighted, and no one saw this coming, right? And we all underestimate what could happen. And it's critical that you give yourself some leeway, some margin for risk to go through. And we'll talk about that a little later on, because you don't know, right? If anybody, I've been at this for 35 years in business overall, and I'll tell you, I never thought COVID would last how long it did. We thought we would be back in the office 3 weeks later, going through the process, and it definitely was a lot more than that. But also you think things like inflation. I remember dealing with inflation in 2008. It was a lot worse. We were a $700 million business that dealt with $120 million inflation in 12 months. That's a lot of money to go through, a lot of pressure. We didn't have the margin and the leeway to handle those challenges. Or the processes to pass on the price increases. It was a major challenge. One of the most interesting one we dealt with is we actually had raw materials that were appropriated by our military. We had 2 coatings suddenly that the whole U.S. government appropriated, you couldn't get anymore. That's how crazy this period was, because they couldn't get enough themselves. Supply chain. Yes, we paid $25,000 for containers. We still couldn't get them. You know, some of those containers showed up 6 and 9 months later. It was just a very, very difficult situation. And I think having your systems and processes, and naturally labor, now it's the most competitive labor market that's been in years, you have to have a structure and resources to deal with the unknown. And right now, these were very challenging times, and we were creative, and we went through a lot, and we reimagined things in the process and adapted. But these are also opportunities. And I think, like anything else, looking at some of these challenges, it's important that you take advantage of the opportunities. And you look what we're dealing with now. New way of working is another one, right? Everybody wants more flexibility to take care of things, and they need to. It's important. But, you know, we're dealing with new regulations, energy inflation. Who knows? Some people say, hey, you know, one of the items today, we're running out of diesel fuel in this country. Well, you know, what happens if there's no diesel fuel? Not much trucking. Major problem. Technology. Technology is cheaper than ever, than any point in time. It will continue to get cheaper. Embrace it, because someone else will. You don't need to be a technology company, but I think you need to make sure that your systems or tools are relevant, because otherwise your competition will take advantage of them. Make sure that you are up to speed and your team uses it in a consistent basis, because it keeps changing, which is good, because every time it changes, it's an opportunity to get better. And you just got to be selective what makes sense for you and have that strategy. And yeah, we're dealing with high interest rates. It's the fastest rising time of interest rate in the history of this country. Now, some people say it will slow down soon, but who knows? What happens if it doesn't? You heard my thought on COVID. I thought 3 to 4 weeks we'd be back in the office. Well, it was like 9 months in Pennsylvania. You couldn't even go back in. You couldn't even make that decision. So you think of high interest rate is definitely a challenge for everybody, but it's also an opportunity. How do you take the friction away for your customers? You know, my son wants to buy a new house. He's thinking, Dad, is this the time? There's no bad time. Things will change. Just to make sure you know how to deal with the situation and have someone that could partner with you to get you where you need. So to help you with some thoughts, and so I know a lot of you are going through, hey, what's my 2023 priorities, right? You're going through what's important. If you're here, you're obviously thinking about doing things differently. You wouldn't be here otherwise. So I worked out a list with some input, some friends, some fellow retailers of questions you could ask yourself to develop those priorities. So first, I think you saw the stat coming in, 87% of the searches for Mrs. Smith and so on starts on the internet. If you're not in the top 5, when they search for it, you're not top of mind. That customer's not coming to your store. So it's obviously something that needs to be addressed. The other piece is, next step, if you're not performing to market or exceeding market, and some of you have much bigger goals that you want to double your business within 3 years or 5 years, but to a minimum, meet market and exceed it. You know, Floor Carving News, Floor Focus, Floor Trend, Weekly, they always have articles, how's the industry going. It gives you a pretty good pulse where things are at. If you're not ahead, you got to do something different. And next one's very important, is really the leads. I've seen hundreds of retailers through my career and gone through it, and I'm surprised how sometimes the closing rates are 15%, 20%. If it's not 50, you got to figure out why it's not. Because this person's come in, they're predisposed to buy. They already like your store, they took the time. No one just shows up to, let me go see what flooring looks like now. They just don't. So if they're walking in your store, they're coming to buy. It's your opportunity to make their dream come true for their project in their remodel. The other piece is your product offering competitive and straightforward. Those two go together. You don't need everything. I love all my fellow manufacturers and all their innovation. You just need to make sure you have a product that meets the needs. You know, you heard the approach that Broadloom takes from performance, design, value, and so on. Do you have something in every category that makes sense, that you're convinced that you can tell a story why it's the right product for the right category? Make it simple. Less is more. There's nothing worse than a cluttered showroom that's out there. So customer experience. They're coming to see you. Are you making it easy? So as you know, things have changed with the workforce. And I think if you're not flexible to give them some time to go to the Daddy Donuts morning session for their kids or take care of a medical appointment, they're going to go somewhere else. And your system and your information, if Mrs. Smith walks in and she already talked to a fellow associate and you can't find that file, God forbid anybody has manila folders again, you still see it. But if you can't find that project information, that's an awful start. It should be visible. It should be, you run a business, treat it as a business. Everything should be there so Mrs. Smith walks in, it's easy. Mary took the call, she's not there. Joe can pull it up and take care of it immediately. She's coming to buy. Expertise. The biggest advantage, the two big advantages actually you have versus all the home centers is one, knowledge and expertise. Your people know more than anybody else. You're the professionals of flooring. You make dreams come true. The home centers can't do that. They're people, there's too much complexity, not overly interested. You provide a better experience with expertise. Never forget that. Then the question is, do you feel good where you're at? And the other piece is speed. As retailers, you can change on a dime. You know, you don't have committees, you don't have different groups and departments that have to sign off on things. You can move quickly. So making sure whatever you have is relevant and make sure that your team is buying into what you're putting forward. Visualization. There's been a lot of conversation of visualization. The things you can do with technology that is very cost effective to make Mrs. Smith's dream come through and see is huge. Take advantage of it. You know, some of the fellow manufacturers are catching up and they got big initiatives and so on. You guys are ahead of the game. You already have a company that's working with you to put it in place, to make it easy so you can press the easy button. You don't need to be a technologist, but there's nothing more compelling for a homeowner to see their project live. Oh, this is what it could look like. This is cool. Before the project is done, she'll probably bring the pictures and show it to her friends. Hey, this is what my project would look like. She'll be very excited. Financing, critical right now. Make it easy, make it simple, make sure you got the right partners. I think it's going to be one of those most important things over the next 24 months because interest rates will continue to rise, and whoever can make it easy and simple for the consumer will have an advantage. And installation. So if you go through, you get the project, go through the whole project and get to install this flooring in this project for them, make sure it finishes on a high. You have the right team, the right folks to help you execute because that's the last mark. And if that turns out well, you'll get 3 more leads out of that. If not, we probably lose 10 customers. It's critical. We talked about systems, and this is true for any business. Make sure your systems are integrated and they work for you, that you don't work for them. You'll be surprised how much time you will free up personally to get things done for your business and your team. And also, it'll help you with those processes we talked about. It will help you develop the way that you want your business to run. Don't let the systems run you. Make sure the system represent how you want to work and be effective. It's critical across that. And it's, like I said, it's cheaper now than ever. So make sure it's something that you have in place that will help you be successful now in the long term. Do you have the right relationships? So there's been a lot of conversation here about suppliers and partners. And really, your suppliers have to be your partners. If you can't get a call back from that manufacturing rep within 4 hours, is he really your partner? Your business has to be important to them, right? So make sure you have the right relationship and the right team around you, and they're part of your team. You know, I don't know a lot of flooring retailers that can get jobs without product. So making sure that you have the right supply relationships is key. Installation, we talked about, they're the final experience for that consumer. Make sure you have the right crews. The right installation is definitely a challenging resource right now. So make sure you have people that can execute timely with the right quality is critical. And this is an odd one, but I think it's going to be more important. I used to be the head of credit for Mohawk in 2008, 2009. You'd be surprised how many banks decide to, I'm not doing any business in building products anymore. I would encourage you strongly, as these interest rates go up, and hopefully it's just a precaution, make sure you know your banker personally, and they know your vision, how to execute. Who knows where this will go, and maybe it's just interest rate will go back down and won't be a worry. But you'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs don't know their banker. They will be important. And by the way, you have the best numbers you've had in the last 2 years. You got a great story to tell. The best time to talk to a bank is when you don't need them. And so have that conversation, have relationship, and get to know them. I think it's critical. And then most importantly, your team. Let's face it, some of you have talked, hey, I can't get so-and-so to do what they need to do. But make sure they're buying into what you go through. If not, make the change. Because all these other things you're trying to do right goes away when you don't have the buy-in from that person. It's critical. Get the right team. They're available. And it's critical to have that alignment. And if they're not aligned, let them give them the feedback. There's probably something you can learn and benefit from. So this is a little video that I think is a good example of when all of you have a lot of obligations, and all of you have a lot of commitments, and there's a lot of places where you can spend personal time. I shared this with an entrepreneur that I'm helping out kind of declutter things, and he can find time. So I shared this little video, and I think that was, and he's a golfer, so it helped with going through, and you'll understand why, but you'll get a little perspective here.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We all have this one life to live. A fleeting shadow amongst all that exists in this vast universe. We have the ability to accomplish anything, truly anything, if we use our time wisely. Is this jar full?
Yes.
And is it full now?
Yes.
And how about now? Is the jar full now?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Now, I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. Golf balls are the important things, your family, your friends, your health, and your passions. The pebbles are the other important things, your car, your job, your home. The sand is everything else, it's just the small stuff. Now, if you put the sand into the jar first, you won't have room for the pebbles or the golf balls. And the same is true in life. If you spend all your energy and your time on the small stuff, you won't have time for all the really important things that matter to you. Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. Take care of the golf balls first, the really important things. Set your priorities, because everything else is, it's just sand. Yes?
Professor, what does the beer represent?
I'm glad you asked. It goes to show that no matter how full your life may seem to be, there's always room for a couple of beers with a friend.
I think this is a great example of lessons you can apply in your business. Let's face it, if you start a business, you're running it now, it's important to you, right? So the question, and you're going to come out with a bunch of great ideas out of this. You'll be pumped and excited and so on. I would challenge everybody here to figure out what are your top 3 golf balls. Just 3. And I would challenge you to share it with someone here to go through and report on them next year. By the time you're done. Just 3. I work in 3s. Just some work 5. I can only handle 3 things at a time. So I start every day. I try to get done. I want to get done 3 things. And so it's really important that you're selective. And as the leaders of the business, you set the tone. You drive it. You own it. You're it. There's no one else. So being that person, that go-to, is critical. So I will be here the rest of the day and tomorrow. If you need a friend to share a beer, I'm happy to do it. My cell phone is on the in the invites I made available to everybody. If you just want someone to bounce off your strategy, your ideas, your priorities, as a friend, this industry's been very, very good to me. And so I got some free time now. Next couple of months, I'm happy to give back. Anybody wants to have a conversation, and I'll give you my cell phone now. It's 678-925-9229, 678-925-9229. One thing I like about the Broadland guys, they're all accessible and available to help you be successful. And if I can help you in any way to do that and hear from you next year, what those things. And by the way, if you want to email me your 3 priorities, and if Todd's nice enough to have him back next year, I'll be happy to go over that with you and see where you're at. All right? So congratulations for being here. Thank you for the invite. I'm looking forward to see what this new mafia will accomplish and drive and Rebels to go through. And best of luck. And looking forward to talking to you over the next couple of days. All right? Thank you.